Pretty beautiful place, huh? Garnet Lake in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. Probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, but just finished up another 30-mile day on the John Muir Trail. A little tired. If I ever did a 30-mile day on the John Muir Trail, I'd be laying horizontal on the ground and the paramedics would be checking for a pulse. So you probably guessed that this is a little bit make-believe. What the scene really looks like right now is something like this, which happens to be my garage in central Indiana in January. But I figured this backdrop was a whole heck of a lot nicer than what actually is going on in the real scene here in Indiana. So I thought I'd use it to start what is going to be my gear explosion video. I've had a number of people ask or suggest that I do a video on essentially taking my full pack as I arrive in camp and walking through it. Thought I'd take the opportunity here on New Year's Day to get that going. So here it is, my gear explosion video. Well, back to reality. It's kind of hard to compete with Garnet Lake, but for Indiana in January, this really isn't all too bad. It's kind of a gray, grungy, cloudy, drizzly type day, but it's about 50 degrees, which is about as warm as it gets in January. Well, anyways, pack explosion. What do I mean by a pack explosion? What I mean by a pack explosion, and that's, I guess, my terminology, a gear explosion, pack explosion, is at the end of each hiking day, finally get into camp, and before you get everything set up, you kind of sit down, you pick yourself a fallen log or a rock if there's one, or the ground if there's nothing. And that's what this table is meant to simulate. This is my fallen log here that I'm going to be exploding all of my gear on. You break down your pack, and so I start, basically at the top of my pack, pull everything out, and then go about all the chores of getting my tent set up, getting the camp set up. So that's what I'm going to simulate here today. I'm obviously fully geared up. I've got basically the same gear kit that I took with me on the Rocky Mountain National Park trip. And so what I'm going to do, basically tear the whole thing down and show you what I've got in my pack, how I organize it, and how I pack it from top to bottom. I'll also talk a little bit about what I'm carrying on here on the outside. I mean, obviously, I've got some things on here that are a little unusual for most backpackers, but it's my camera gear, so we'll go through that as well. Word on how I organize and pack my pack and where this all came from. A couple things, I guess, in terms of organization of my pack. I know it's probably a little bit of a controversial subject. I use a lot of stuff sacks. I know there's a school of thought out there of just kind of jamming everything in your pack without stuff sacks, that the stuff sacks are just extra cost and extra weight that aren't necessary. I don't agree with that school of thought. The reason that I use stuff sacks, and I am pretty diligent about the way that I do it, because I want things organized. When you're out, especially when you're out solo in the wilderness, it can be mentally, emotionally, anxiety laden. So anything that you can do to add to your comfort level, eliminate some of those additional stresses, is, to me, money well spent. And so one of the things that I do is I use stuff sacks. I use multicolored stuff sacks, and so each color has a very particular meaning to me. I want to be able to look at a bag, in the dead of night when it's dark out in my tent, and be able to see the color and know what the contents of that bag is. I will actually go through all that and explain it to you. What I'm not going to do in this video is a detailed gear review. I'm not going to pull out every single item of every piece of gear that I have in every one of my stuff sacks, but I will explain, the general purpose of each of them so that you can, match that to your own system or modify it accordingly for whatever works for you. The other thing is on how I pack my pack. Long ago on some of my early trips, I did not like the way that my pack felt. I typically carried a lot of the heavy things down at the bottom, like my tent, like my food bag and all that. I thought that's the way that it should be, is, keep the heavy stuff at the bottom so you don't get top heavy. In fact, it's really just the opposite. You want your lightest things at the bottom, your heaviest stuff kind of in the middle of your bag, not necessarily at the very top. I found a diagram that really illustrated what was considered to be the best way, or they considered to be the best way to pack it. And so that's actually what I've followed, and it's worked extremely well for me. So that's what you'll see in here. Okay, so with that, let's get into it. Starting on the outside here, it's a little bit more of an elaborate process to actually take my pack off than most people. Starting with my top bag here, which carries my still camera. This is actually a Z-Packs 4-in-1 bag. It's suspended by a couple straps that come off my shoulder straps up here, and there's some quick release tabs. So first thing I've got to do is I've got to do that. Now you'll notice I actually run the shoulder strap of the camera through my sternum strap for safety, and I can't tell you how many times that saved my camera from harm, because it will tend to fall out of this bag. But that is something for safety. So I've got to undo my sternum strap. And so there I've got my still camera, a Nikon D700 with a Nikkor 20mm f2.8 lens typically, in a Z-Packs 4-in-1 bag. Now in my lower bag here, this is where I carry my video camera. It's basically just an ultralight sil nylon fanny pack that I carry obviously backwards, but that's my video camera. And then there's a quick release strap to get the bag off. These are my trekking poles. These are Black Diamond Ultra Distance Z carbon fiber trekking poles. Very, very lightweight. I know there's similar ones made. Now I'm to the point where I can actually get myself out of my pack. So my pack itself, I've talked about this in my gear overview video last year. This is a Z-Packs Arc Blast 52 liter. It's the old design. Fantastic pack. I would call it a near perfect pack. And one of the reasons I do call it near perfect instead of perfect, you can probably see right here. This mesh on the back, which I use extensively, and I'll go through that, has actually taken it on the chin a couple times. It's not really as durable as I would like, but that's one of the things I wish they would improve upon, but it still works just fine. I need a pouch like this. I've tried packs without it and just didn't like them, and had to go back to a pack like this. So first thing that I have in here is actually my Therm-A-Rest Neoair pad for sleeping. There's no particular reason why I have to carry it back here, but it fits very nicely in that spot, and it takes some room out of the inside of the pack, and it's waterproof, so it doesn't matter if it does get subjected to the weather a little bit. The other thing that I do put back here for a very important reason, this is a Z-Rest sit pad. I use this thing all the time. Every time I stop for a break, I'll set it down on a tree, I'll set it down on a rock, just to give myself some extra padding and insulation, but I want that thing handy on the back of the pack. I also carry in here my Sawyer Mini system, the filter itself, as well as the bag. Keep that in the back so it's handy. A couple controversial pieces of gear. This is a GPS. I don't always carry it, but I'd probably say I carry it more often than not, especially if I'm in a wilderness area. If you watch the Holy Cross Wilderness trip from this year, I needed this thing. We had left the map in the car as we did this shuttle thing before we got going, and this thing got us back on trail, so it was awful nice having that thing with it. I'll typically carry it just for safety. I would consider it to be most of the time a luxury item. And then the other controversial piece of gear I have is a pack cover. I carry a Z-Packs Cuben fiber pack cover. Thing weighs probably about an ounce. I'm just kind of a nut about wanting to keep my gear dry. I actually use a pack liner in the inside that we'll look at, a Z-Packs pack liner, and then I also have a pack cover for the outside. On the side pouch is my 1 liter soft-sided Nalgene, and then in the shoulder bag is a ½ liter water bottle. So that's typically my load of water that I carry actively for the day. On my left-hand pouch is my Surai T025X carbon fiber tripod. It's not as light as you might think, but it's extremely stable, and it's a very, very nice tripod. I do have 2 hip belt pouches that I use. On the right-hand side would be my what I would call my nourishment, my nutrition Pap Pouch. This carries all of the snacks that I'm going to use for the day, as well as my Noon tablets, both the normal Noon as well as the Energy Noon. Gel packs, I'll carry some in here. It actually holds quite a bit of stuff, so it's usually enough for the day. And then in my left-hand hip belt pouch, this is where I would carry all of what I call my emergency type material or survival type material. I carry my Aquamira kit in here if I'm carrying it for the day. I carry my bug repellent in here. I carry in here my small little folding Gerber pocket knife. But all of that stuff is in here so that I know where it is. So that covers what I've got on the outside of the pack. So now let's get in and tear down what's on the inside of the pack. The Z-Packs Arc Blast closes with, a tie down here on the top. It's also got a roll top for waterproofing. The pack itself is seam sealed, so it's essentially waterproof. But in the very top of the pack, I carry my rain gear. This is the Z-Packs Challenger rain jacket and the Z-Packs Challenger rain pants. Unbelievably expensive, unbelievably good. I've tried many different types of rain gear, and this is it for me. The next thing I have in here are these are Platypus 1 liter soft bottles. I carry 3 of them, basically as supplemental water containers for camp. The other water container that I keep on the very top of my pack is my Platypus Big Zip 3 liter. I've talked about this on a couple videos before. It's basically for camp water storage. I'm down to the actual pack liner itself. So we'll get into that. Camp shoes. These are unshoes, they're called. They're pretty lightweight camp shoes. I got to have a set of camp shoes. I've tried everything else, but I just like having like a little tiny something to put on my feet and get my feet out of my boots that I wear during the day. Let everything breathe out a little bit. The next thing, another controversial piece of gear. This is the Exped Air Pillow Large. I do carry a pillow. I line this with a down pillow cover. That's absolutely fantastic. Then near the top of my pack, this is my food bag. Actually, I'm simulating the Rocky Mountain National Park trip, and on that trip I actually had a bear canister, but I didn't feel like pulling my bear canister out of storage. The next bag I have in here, now we get into some of my specific purpose bags. The Army Green bag. This is the kitchen bag. It's a Z-Packs Cuben fiber stuff sack, and I carry all of my kitchen stuff in here. So this is my canister fuel, my beloved Dunkin' Donuts coffee is always in here, as is the MSR drip filter. Got some toilet paper in here typically. I've got my extra cordage in here. I usually carry about 50 feet of paracord. Got my long spoon that I use to dig down into some of the food bags, food when I eat it, that sort of stuff. So this is what I call my kitchen bag. Another this is a pure luxury item. This is the Grand Trunk Nano Hammock. Absolutely a complete luxury item, and I did carry it on the Rocky Mountain National Park trip just because I knew I was going to have a lot of time to lounge around. It weighs about half a pound, so pure luxury item. I know, controversial, but I did have it with me, so I thought I'd keep it in here. Then my one pot that I carry an MSR Titan titanium 0.9 liter kettle, and then in there, I've talked about this in the gear overview video, I have another titanium coffee mug, and inside that coffee mug is my stove, which I think is an MSR Whisper Light or micro light canister stove. I wrap it in some paper towel and I put it inside that mug. Then I line the kettle itself with some paper towel, but its primary purpose is to, keep the thing from rattling around and driving me nuts while I'm hiking. Another potentially controversial piece of gear. This is a tarp, Z-Packs 8.5 by 10 foot Cuben fiber tarp. I don't always carry this with me. Like for example, in the Sierra Nevada, when it hadn't rained in 5 years or so, and I was pretty sure it was not going to rain when I was there, there was absolutely no reason to carry this extra weight. But most other times I do carry it. If you watch the Holy Cross Wilderness video, you'll realize why I carry this. It really was a blessing when you're in camp and you got the thunderstorms rolling in and the hail and just the miserable weather. This can be an absolute lifesaver. The white bag. In this bag is all of my emergency supplies. So this contains my first aid kit, my fire starting kit, which I have a number of different ways to start fire. It has my headlamp, it has my compass, it has a little tiny candle that I can use both as a fire starter, as a light source, and as a tiny little heat source. My duct tape, it's got my Leuco tape. So all of that type of stuff is in here. I call it my emergency bag. My next bag is my little blue bag. This is my personal bag, so this is all my toiletry type stuff. So this would contain my medicine, so like Advil, things like that I carry on the trip. Contains my toothpaste, my toothbrush. Actually has a little tiny, cool little pair of clip-on reading glasses. I'm getting a little older, can't see stuff up close, but that type of stuff is in there. That's like my personal bag. Then my clothes bag. This is a larger Z-Packs Cuben fiber, getting the theme here, Z-Packs Cuben fiber bag. This carries all of my spare clothes, and I will tell you, I don't carry a lot of spare clothes. I usually carry one extra pair of underwear, an extra pair of socks. I do carry 2 different base layer tops. One's a microweight, one's a midweight, and then I carry a microweight long bottom as well. Those would be in here, as would be my puffy jacket. My down jacket would be in here. My toque, you know, my hat that I would wear. That's my clothes bag. Then up against the back of the pack here, I actually carry my cozy. This is, I talked about this in a gear overview video. It's a Hammock outdoor gear cozy. I'm not sure the company's even in business anymore. A couple of people have made comments that they tried to get one of these and never received it. So I'm not sure if that company still exists. Then my shelter. This is the Z-Packs Hexamid Solo Plus shelter. It's the shelter I used in the Rocky National Mountain Park video. I love the shelter. It weighs in at about just a little bit over a pound. Just an absolutely fantastic shelter. And on the very bottom, generally, is my sleeping bag. This is a Montbell Super Stretch number 3 30-degree bag. I've talked about it in the gear overview video. I bought this sleeping bag when I first started backpacking, and it is still like brand new. You'll notice I don't compress it down too much. I put it in I think this is a 10-liter Z-Packs Cuben fiber stuff sack, and I do that deliberately because I want the volume at the bottom of my pack to get things elevated, to get them off my lower backs. And then I typically put the shelter on top of this. Now, if it is wet and my shelter is wet when I pack it up, like it was in the Holy Cross Wilderness trip this year, I'll put this at the very bottom because I don't want that water dripping down on my sleeping pad. So I do modify my system, you know, based on circumstances, but that's pretty much how I pack it up. The last thing that I have in here, this is a Z-Packs pack liner. I think it's a 45 or maybe a 52-liter pack liner. It's basically a big dry bag. Yeah, I've used trash compactor bags before. They work just fine, and they're a whole lot cheaper, but I bought this as a luxury item, and I just absolutely love the thing. It's got a Velcro roll top. It's all seam sealed, completely waterproof. For a very small weight penalty, gives me that peace of mind. Basically all of my gear that needs to be inside a waterproof area is going to be dry and not subjected to the elements. So there you have it. Why do I call it a pack explosion? Well, you kind of get the idea. That's the ritual that I would go through every time that I get into camp at night. I'll find some kind of spot, I'll start setting up camp, I'll go through, you know, set my tent up, go through all the chores that I need to do around camp. The one thing I do is after I've set everything up, I take all of those stuff sacks and I put them back in the pack here so that I know where they are. And the next morning when I've got to pack everything up, then I just have to pull all the stuff sacks out. I've got them all organized, and as I'm packing up my gear, the stuff sack that I need is right there. That's my pack explosion. I hope it's been some useful information for you. If you have any questions or any comments or any suggestions on what I could do better, please leave them in the comments section below. I'll respond as quickly as I can. But that's my gear explosion, my pack explosion. Hope you enjoyed it.